Weirdest and biggest GM engines ever made. What if we told you that GM's history is packed with engines so massive and bizarre, they could power everything from muscle cars to fire trucks, and even a few of the weirdest cars ever imagined? From torque monsters like the Buick 455 and Pontiac 455 to the record-breaking ZZ632, GM wasn't afraid to push boundaries and break the mold. But what makes these engines truly unforgettable? Is it their sheer size, their unorthodox designs, or the legendary vehicles they powered? In this video, we'll dive into the biggest GM engines ever made, explore some of the weirdest GM engines, and uncover the stories behind these engineering marvels. Which of these engines would you drop into your dream build? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Muscle Car Masters for more deep dives into automotive history and the wildest muscle car stories. Let's rev up and get started. GMC 637. How about the biggest GM engine ever made for the road? If you think of legends like the Cadillac 500 or Chrysler's mighty Hemis, you're in for a surprise. Meet the GMC 637 cubic inches 60-degree V8, an absolute behemoth that most people have never heard of, yet it's one of GM's boldest experiments in engineering. This 10.4-liter monster, produced between 1967 and 1972, was based on GMC's robust V6 truck engines. It featured a massive 5.125-inch bore and 3.86-inch stroke, creating a square design that minimized piston speed for durability. But here's the twist. This V8 had a 60-degree bank angle, a design borrowed from the V6, which made it inherently unbalanced. To counteract this, GMC added a balance shaft, a rare feature for a truck engine, making it surprisingly smooth for its size. Its 275 horsepower at 2,800 RPM wasn't earth-shattering, but its 600 pound-feet of torque at just 1,600 RPM was perfect for heavy-duty applications. The 637 replaced GMC's wild 702 cubic inches V12 twin-six, but was over a foot shorter and several hundred pounds lighter. With spark plugs relocated to the engine valley to avoid heat damage, and its design allowing for compact packaging, the 637 was ideal for fire trucks, buses, and heavy-duty workhorses. Diesel enthusiasts might recall its D637 Toro Flow diesel sibling, which came with turbocharged versions producing 220 horsepower and 458 pound-feet of torque. Though rare today, this gasoline-guzzling titan remains a testament to GM's fearless innovation during its weirdest engineering era. It might not have powered muscle cars, but the 637 cubic inches stands tall among the biggest and weirdest GM engines ever conceived. LSX 454. What happens when Chevrolet reinvents a classic? Enter the LSX 454, a 21st-century masterpiece that pays homage to one of the biggest GM engines of all time, the legendary Chevy 454 Big Block. With 454 cubic inches of displacement, the LSX 454 is a beast designed for extreme performance. Built on a cast-iron LSX block with 6-bolt cross-bolted main bearing caps, it's engineered for strength under the harshest conditions. The engine features a forged steel crankshaft, high-flow aluminum cylinder heads, and a hydraulic roller camshaft, delivering 627 horsepower and an impressive 586 pound-feet of torque. Whether it's dropped into a classic muscle car, an off-road monster, or a custom hot rod, this engine performs. Chevy didn't stop there. The LSX 454R pushed the boundaries even further, with up to 823 horsepower recorded in dyno tests. With its Dominator carburetor and high-rise intake manifold, it redefined crate engine performance. While the LSX 454R has been retired, its sibling, the LSX 454, continues to be a cornerstone of Chevrolet performance, proving that GM's innovation isn't stuck in the past. The LSX 454 doesn't just carry the torch for GM's big block legacy, it reshapes it, cementing its place among the weirdest GM engines ever designed to dominate both the road and the track. Buick 455. Unleashed in 1970, the Buick 455 boasted 7.5 liters of displacement, delivering a thunderous 360 horsepower and an earth-shaking 510 pound-feet of torque at just 2,800 RPM in its high-performance Stage 1 trim. Unlike its heavier GM cousins, Buick employed thin-wall casting, making the 455 a remarkable 150 pounds lighter than the Chevy 454. This gave it an edge in power-to-weight ratios, especially in muscle cars like the Grand Sport and the striking GSX, where it propelled these heavyweights from 0 to 60 in just 5.5 seconds. For those chasing even more thrills, the rare Stage 2 package offered dealer-installed upgrades, including forged pistons, hotter cams, and high-flow heads, pushing output to a ferocious 410 horsepower. Designed for superstock drag racing, the unmuffled Stage 2 was loud, raw, and unapologetically brutal. Despite facing the oil crisis and emissions regulations of the 1970s, the 455 endured until 1976, outliving many of its rivals. Its focus on low RPM torque made it a favorite for luxury cruisers like the Riviera, Electra, and Estate Wagon, proving its versatility as both a muscle car monster and a torque-rich workhorse. Lightweight, powerful, and innovative, the Buick 455 isn't just one of GM's biggest engines. It's a testament to an era when Detroit wasn't afraid to push boundaries. ZZ632. What's bigger, badder, and ready to rewrite the rules of high-performance crate engines? Meet the ZZ632, GM's most powerful and largest crate engine ever, introduced in 2021. Producing a jaw-dropping 1,004 horsepower at 6,600 RPM and a colossal 876 pound-feet of torque at 5,600 RPM, the ZZ632 is a naturally aspirated beast that doesn't require exotic fuels. With the ability to run on pump gas, it's remarkably accessible for such a purpose-built engine. This 632 cubic inch big block shares its roots with the ZZ572 but takes performance to a whole new level. Engineers stretched the bore and stroke to create this massive displacement, supported by 4-bolt main caps, a forged rotating assembly, and CNC-machined aluminum RSX symmetrical port heads, a design legacy from GM's performance mastermind, Ron Sperry. Every intake and exhaust port on the ZZ632 is identical, ensuring precise power delivery across all cylinders. Tested with over 200 simulated drag strip passes, this engine is built to dominate. It revs to 7,000 RPM, offering a reliable yet ferocious power band. At a starting price of $32,935, the ZZ632 is a pinnacle of GM's engineering. Whether you're restoring a muscle car or crafting a custom build, this engine guarantees extreme performance. Is this the king of the biggest GM engines? Pontiac 455. What defines a true muscle car engine? Is it raw horsepower, tire-shredding torque, or its role in creating legends? For Pontiac, the 455 cubic inch V8 was all three. Debuting in 1970, this engine wasn't just big. It became one of the biggest GM engines of its time, cementing its place in muscle car history. The Pontiac 455 was born by enlarging the 421 Super Duty, resulting in a bore of 4.1525 inches and a stroke of 4.21 inches. In its first year, it delivered a formidable 370 horsepower and an incredible 500 pound-feet of torque, making it a torque monster that powered iconic cars like the GTO, Firebird Trans Am, and Grand Prix. Unlike its GM siblings, The Buick 455 or the Oldsmobile Rocket 455, Pontiac emphasized low-end grunt, ensuring strong off-the-line acceleration and smooth highway cruising. Pontiac didn't stop there. The high-output and Super Duty versions introduced in later years pushed the limits with stronger internals, round port heads, and more aggressive camshafts. The 455 SD in the 1973 Firebird Trans Am produced 310 horsepower, even as emissions regulations tightened. However, by 1976, declining compression ratios and federal restrictions reduced the engine's power, marking the end of an era. Despite this, the 455 remains a favorite among enthusiasts, often modified to produce over 600 horsepower in today's drag races. Chevy 572. What happens when GM engineers decide to create a big block V8 that's all about extreme performance? The answer is the ZZ 572, a 9.4-liter powerhouse that redefines what crate engines can do. Could this beast find its way into some of the weirdest cars for mind-blowing builds? Absolutely. The ZZ 572 comes in two configurations. The 620 Deluxe, delivering a staggering 621 horsepower and 645 pound-feet of torque, and the 720R Deluxe, cranking out an earth-shaking 727 horsepower and 680 pound-feet of torque. This engine is built for versatility, powering everything from drag strip dominators to custom street builds. Its forged crankshaft, aluminum rectangular port heads, and raised exhaust ports make it both durable and high-performing under the most demanding conditions. Chevrolet didn't cut corners. This crate engine includes a fully assembled bottom end, allowing builders to choose their induction system. Add to that a Dominator-style 1150 CFM carburetor, and you've got a package that screams performance. While it's not cheap, with a price starting at $19,664 for the 620 Deluxe and $20,359 for the 720R, it delivers unmatched power-to-dollar value. Whether you're aiming for a sub-10-second drag car or a street rod capable of turning heads, the ZZ 572 proves why it's one of GM's biggest and most exciting engines. Oldsmobile 455. When you think of GM's biggest V8 engines, does Oldsmobile come to mind? While often overshadowed by Chevrolet and Pontiac, the Oldsmobile 455 Rocket proved itself a versatile powerhouse. Debuting in 1968, the Oldsmobile 455 was the brand's largest big block engine, boasting a 4.126-inch bore and 4.25-inch stroke. This naturally aspirated beast delivered 400 horsepower and an earth-shaking 500 pound-feet of torque, making it ideal for everything from muscle cars to luxury cruisers. It wasn't just confined to the 442 or Cutlass. The 455 also powered the innovative front-wheel drive Toronado and family-friendly station wagons like the Vista Cruiser. Oldsmobile offered variants to suit different needs, from high-compression performance builds to milder options for everyday use. The W30 package, introduced in 1970, added forged connecting rods, aluminum pistons, and a more aggressive camshaft, boosting performance to a track-ready 370 horsepower. However, as the 1970s progressed, emissions regulations forced compression ratios down, and by 1976, output had dwindled to under 200 horsepower, marking the end of this big block era. Cadillac 500 V8. What's bigger than big? Meet the Cadillac 500 V8, a gargantuan 8.2-liter engine that remains one of GM's biggest V8 engines ever made. Introduced in 1970, the 500 cubic-inch V8 was Cadillac's response to the growing demand for effortless power in its luxury lineup. This engine was a stroked version of the 472 V8, with a 4.30-inch bore and a 4.304-inch stroke, delivering a jaw-dropping 400 horsepower and an earth-moving 550 pound-feet of torque at just 3,000 RPM. Exclusively powering the Fleetwood Eldorado initially, this engine was optimized for smooth, low RPM torque, making it ideal for Cadillac's massive luxury cruisers. Despite its immense capability, the 500 V8 quickly fell victim to the tightening emissions regulations of the 1970s. By its final year in 1976, its output had dropped to 190 horsepower and 360 pound-feet of torque, marking the end of the muscle era for this big block legend. Still, its innovative design included thick cylinder walls, a high deck height for future expansion, and integrated accessory mounts, showcasing Cadillac's forward-thinking engineering. Cadillac 472. Cadillac 472, introduced in 1968, this 7.7-liter V8 wasn't just about size. It was about redefining smooth, effortless power for America's most luxurious cars. Could it have powered some of the weirdest cars with grace? Absolutely. This big block V8 delivered an impressive 375 horsepower and a colossal 525 pound-feet of torque, making it one of the most torque-rich engines of its era. The 472 was designed to move Cadillac's massive cars, such as the DeVille and Eldorado, with grace and authority. Unlike high-revving performance engines, the 472 focused on delivering low-end grunt, allowing for seamless acceleration and effortless highway cruising. Its durability and advanced casting techniques made it a reliable workhorse capable of enduring high mileage without significant wear. Built as a successor to Cadillac's 429 V8, the 472 introduced fewer gasket joints and parts, simplifying maintenance. However, by the early 1970s, tightening emissions regulations began to chip away at its performance. By 1974, horsepower dropped to 205 and torque to 365 pound-feet of torque, signaling the twilight of an era. Yet, its legacy lived on, as the 472 laid the foundation for Cadillac's legendary 500 V8, one of the largest engines in GM's history. Chevrolet ZZ502. What's the ultimate blend of brute force and modern reliability? Look no further than the Chevrolet ZZ502, a crate engine that commands respect with its 8.2 liters of displacement and a lineup of configurations to suit every performance need. At the top of the lineup is the ZZ502 Deluxe, delivering a jaw-dropping 508 horsepower and 580 pound-feet of torque at 3,600 RPM. Its high-flow aluminum oval port heads and hydraulic roller camshaft ensure smooth, consistent power across the rev range, while the all-forged rotating assembly guarantees durability under extreme conditions. With features like forged aluminum pistons, a forged steel crankshaft, and a 4-bolt main block, this engine can handle high stress without breaking a sweat. For those seeking versatility, the HT502 focuses on torque, producing 406 horsepower and a massive 541 pound-feet of torque, making it ideal for towing and heavy-duty applications. Meanwhile, the 502 HO cranks it up a notch with 461 horsepower, perfect for both street builds and drag racing. With a starting price of $8,295, the ZZ502 lineup delivers exceptional value, proving that high performance doesn't always have to come at a premium. So, which of these weirdest and biggest GM engines blew your mind? Was it the torque-rich Buick 455, the groundbreaking ZZ632, or the little-known giants like the GMC 637? GM's legacy proves that they weren't afraid to experiment, innovate, and create engines that redefined performance. sometimes in the most unexpected ways. If you could choose one of these legendary power plants for your next build, which would it be? Or do you know of another GM engine that deserves a spot on this list? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Muscle Car Masters for more epic stories about the engines and cars that shaped automotive history. Keep the conversation going, and let's celebrate the wild, powerful, and unforgettable world of GM's engineering marvels together. See you in the next video.